La conferencia que tenemos a continuación trata de un tema de todo el interés de nuestra asociación y también, por supuesto, de nuestros participantes, como lo es la acreditación, ya que este es un proceso pilar fundamental para la formación de calidad y de excelencia. Pero sobre esto nos va a hablar muchísimo más en profundidad el moderador de esta conferencia, el ingeniero Humberto Gómez Vega de la Universidad del Norte, quien acompañará a nuestra conferencista. Vamos a recibir entonces en el escenario al ingeniero Humberto. Bienvenido.
Bueno, muy buenos días. Gusto estar aquí presente y qué alegría también verlos formar parte de este encuentro. Por supuesto, continuando con esta jornada de nuestro Encuentro Internacional de Educación e Ingeniería. Como parte de la agenda, pues siempre hemos tenido el interés de compartir cómo distintas iniciativas desde el punto de vista del aseguramiento de la calidad de nuestros programas tiene un impacto profundo en lo que creo que al final es la misión de todos los que de alguna manera participamos del proceso de formación de nuestros estudiantes, y es lograr que ellos sean exitosos, garantizar su éxito, garantizar esa promesa de valor que le hemos hecho a ellos a través de distintos postulados, ya sean misiones de programas, perfiles ocupacionales, objetivos educacionales, y que al final lo que buscamos es que nuestros currículos y nuestras experiencias para ellos pues logren eso, formarlos para ser exitosos. Continuando con la agenda internacional, entonces vamos a tener la oportunidad de escuchar la charla de Ann Kennimer, donde vamos a tener la posibilidad de ver cómo inclusive un modelo de acreditación al final tiene un impacto en aspectos muy importantes, y es en preparar a nuestros graduados para poderse involucrar en sus actividades profesionales desde un punto de vista global. Hoy en día sabemos que nuestro actuar profesional es un actuar global. Cada vez más reconocemos la importancia del trabajo en equipo, y en equipos que son de naturaleza cultural distinta, en equipos que inclusive pueden ser de disciplinas distintas, reconociendo el impacto que tiene la ingeniería interdisciplinaria en estos momentos. Creo que todos reconocemos que el resolver los grandes problemas que tenemos en este momento en la humanidad requiere necesariamente transitar las tradicionales fronteras disciplinares con las cuales hemos estado siempre acostumbrados a distinguir. Entonces, para darle la bienvenida a nuestra presentación, voy a cambiarme al inglés. So we would like to introduce Ann Kennimer. Thank you, Ann, for being here. Ann Kennimer serves as the Chief Accreditation Officer for ABET. Ann is also Professor Emerita and Associate Provost Emerita at Texas A&M University. Over her 30-year career as a faculty member at Texas A&M, she held several college and university-level positions, including Associate Dean and Interim Executive Associate Dean in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, Associate Dean and Faculty, Interim Dean and Chief Operator Officer at Texas A&M University at Qatar, and Associate Provost for Undergraduate Study. So Ann, thank you for being here and welcome to our conference.
Thank you, Umberto, and thank you all for joining me this morning to talk about the challenges that our graduates are going to be facing in the future and how we can best prepare them to meet some of those challenges. And so what are the challenges that our graduates are going to be facing? They are coming into a landscape or a world situation where the population of humans across the globe is rapidly increasing. But we also know that most of the resources that are available to support that population, air, water, soil resources, are finite. And some of the resources that we rely heavily on, particularly fossil fuels, are dwindling quickly. And so they will have to deal with some of these large overarching problems. I think these are very well captured by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And if you look at some of these, many of them are very specific to the types of problems that engineers and other professionals from the STEM disciplines are particularly well prepared to address. And so I think that the students that we are graduating and sending off into the workforce are very well poised to help with some of these large-scale global issues. They're also going to be moving into a situation where technological advancement is just accelerating at an incredible pace. It's only been a little bit more than a year when we saw broad public access to artificial intelligence and large language models. In fact, I remember it starting just before our fall semester at Texas A&M, and we were all scrambling trying to figure out how AI was going to change the way we taught for the upcoming year. And I am not the first person to adopt new technologies, but as you will see even later in this presentation, I have already started using AI, at least in some limited capacity. I find it is really very good for proofreading and other things. And so our students need to be prepared to adjust and to adapt to the technologies that will be changing very rapidly as they go into the workforce, so that they have the basic foundation and know how best to use these technologies to their benefit. We also know that the economy is becoming much more global than local. And so a student's ability to be able to develop strong working relationships and productive operations with people from any type of background, any type of culture, any language is going to be key for them to be able to really make an impact on some of these larger issues. And we also know that there is going to be increasing demand for engineers and other graduates from the STEM disciplines. It was mentioned in the opening ceremonies yesterday that the United States has been hiring a lot of graduates that have graduated from programs outside of the United States. And I think that that really is very telling in how even within the United States, where we have a fairly well-developed higher education system, we are not able to produce enough engineers to meet our own needs. This is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it shows that the demand for engineers in the United States is expected to outpace demand for graduates in other disciplines. And I imagine that the difference is the same or potentially greater in other locations. And so I think certainly within the United States, we need to do a better job of graduating more engineers, but I think that probably that need is going to be universal. So for those of us who are in higher education, what does that mean for us? And my argument is that we need to prepare our graduates to manage and to navigate the changes that they will see through the duration of their careers, that we need to ready them to be effective in working in a global environment and with people from many different types of backgrounds. And we need to do our best to be preparing and graduating more engineers. So let's talk about these individually. How do we prepare graduates for this change, for this acceleration in technological development? Well, certainly they need to have good foundations in the basic principles of their discipline. And so certainly in engineering, that means strong mathematics, basic sciences that are appropriate to their particular discipline. They need to have good foundation in the basic engineering sciences and in those particular disciplinary areas that are just characteristic of their field. They also need to have a broad education that prepares them for good communications, to be culturally and societally aware, and to work well and productively with others. Some of you may be familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, which describes depth of learning. To really prepare students to be able to self-learn and to do good things with the information that they find, we need to push them to be operating at the deeper levels of learning, which would be creating, evaluating, and analyzing. And I think the really great way to do that, and things that we already do as part of an engineering education, is to incorporate high-impact learning experiences into our curriculum so that the students have these experiences before they graduate and they know how to do them. Things that require them to synthesize information that they learn from multiple courses to come up with a viable solution to a complex problem. To be able to locate and to critically evaluate and to use information that they find on their own that's not given to them by an instructor. And to critically evaluate the ideas that they develop to determine whether or not they really meet the goals of a project, and if they do not, how to go about iterating their solution or their design to make certain that they are doing the best job of meeting their constraints as they can. We need to instill in our students a commitment to professional development, because this is really, I think, the way that they're going to be able to stay current in the new developments and the new knowledge and the new practices within their specific discipline. And so we need to get them engaged with industry and to know that how people in industry stay engaged and stay current. And we need to facilitate student engagement in professional societies. And this can take many different things. Often it is because there is a student chapter or a local chapter at the institution where they attend. So they can start to feel part of their professional community and want to stay engaged with that professional community as they continue on as professionals in their discipline. We need to ensure that they have the appropriate tools to be effective self-learners. I think often, certainly I see it, saw it a lot when I was at Texas A&M University, students thought that they didn't have to learn after they graduated. Oh, I'm going to graduate in May, and that's it, I'm done. It's just like, oh, you are just getting started in learning. And I think we need to make them aware that they will need to continue to learn on their own, and that they will have to be able to be effective at learning, even without an instructor to guide them. And so they need to be familiar with the resources that are available to them. What are the standards that are appropriate to their discipline? Are there regulations or ordinance or other types of things that are going to impact the way they do their work within that context? And I think it's particularly important that we help them develop information literacy. And this is another thing that we see is badly needed in the United States, that people will find information, but they don't really evaluate whether that information is valid or not, whether that information has come from a source that is neutral, or whether that source has a particular motivation in putting the information out there. And so is the source of the information reliable? And often people don't know how to genuinely apply the new information that they acquire. And so we need to give students opportunities to develop these skills so that they can make informed decisions about the information they find as they go into professional practice. So our second challenge is preparing students to be effective working in a global workforce. Certainly, I think preparing students with basic fundamentals that are recognized as important to the discipline across the globe is important. And so this gives us a standardized base of knowledge for those individuals who are working in a particular discipline. And so making certain that we have alignment with those global standards within our own curricula helps provide that uniform foundation. We need graduate attributes, and there are graduate attributes that have been developed by international groups that identify the basic attributes that graduates should have, the basic knowledge base that students should have as they come forward with a STEM or an engineering degree. An example of this is the Washington Accord, which has, I think, about 20-some signatories at this point in time. They have developed a list of attributes for graduates in the engineering disciplines, and they look like this. And you will recognize that many of these attributes are things that you have in your own engineering curricula. Certainly engineering knowledge and problem analysis, design, investigation and experimentation, use of modern tools, environment and sustainability, and many other things, communication and teamwork. And this provides that uniform foundation that allows engineers, regardless of where they were trained, to know that there's a common understanding about their discipline. We need to make certain that our graduates have good communication skills. And I think it's very easy to think of communication skills as their ability to make a formal presentation or to write a report or a memo or a technical standard. But I think we also need to be very careful in developing their skills with interpersonal communications, because this is really where they will develop their ability to work in interdisciplinary or intercultural teams. They need to be able to identify what their audience needs, and so certainly that addresses the level of knowledge that their audience might have. It's one thing when you're addressing a group of peers at a technical college and everybody in the room has the same discipline and is very advanced in their knowledge, than if you're going to a public meeting where you're addressing people who may know nothing about the discipline. And so students need to have that knowledge awareness and that audience awareness. But they also need to be aware of cultural differences and stylistic differences in communication style as they go from one culture to the next. I think it's also important that they have good communication skills so that they can build their network and continue on with professional engagement, because this network is going to help them with their mobility and their opportunity to collaborate. It also is going to be the type of thing that helps them keep current with technological advances in their discipline. Teaming skills, I think, are also critical for students to be able to work in intercultural and intersocietal teams. They need to be able to leverage the beauty that comes with having a truly diverse team. It can lead to complications in teaming, but inevitably you will come up with a much better solution if you have different perspectives and different thoughts at the table. They need to be able to productively navigate differences in communication and culture. They need to be able to build trust with their teammates, even if they are very different demographically or from a language perspective or from their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, so that they can still work productively together. And they need to be able to make the most of meetings in a virtual context. I think we all recognize that it is preferable when we can to meet face-to-face, but that isn't always feasible because of travel costs and time constraints and other things. And so learning to do a good job in a virtual meeting, that takes some practice and it takes a little bit of skill. And so helping students to develop those before they go into the workforce, I think, is important. And certainly if you are working in a team, knowing how to constructively manage conflict and differences of opinion is going to be crucial in keeping that team functional. And we need to do what we can to help students develop their own sense of cultural and societal awareness. I think the foundation for this is helping students understand how their own background influences how they approach problems, and what their expectations are within groups and behavior and other things. And I think having that sense of self is really the starting point for understanding how we interact with others. To recognize that cultural and societal norms are normal and natural, and it's something that I think can be constructively to explored. It's certainly one of the things that I have valued most from working at an institution that has people from all over the globe, and I've had an opportunity to work with people in many different situations, many different cultural contexts, and I believe that I am better as an individual for having that experience. And so I think helping students understand that it is an opportunity to grow and to be more effective is helpful in that regard. And it also helps build their confidence and their comfort with asking questions. Well, tell me how your culture is different than mine is. This is how we handle, this is what we do. This is when we eat lunch. This is when we eat dinner. These are the things that we think are important. What is the role of family in your culture? And so many different things that make us unique in our cultures, but also I think are very interesting and help us see that the person that we're working with who might look different than us and have a different language really shares a lot of similarities with us, and that the similarities are much more important than the differences. And so our third challenge is actually graduating more students. And I think that this may be the toughest of the nuts to crack. I will argue that one of our best resources for potential graduates is, well, I got ahead of myself. That's the next slide. I think we need to open the doors. We need to find resources for new students, but it's not just admitting the students and getting them into our programs. We need to make certain that once those students are in our programs, that we are providing the resources and the support that they need to successfully complete our programs and to graduate. I think an excellent resource for untapped students is what probably you refer to them as first-generation students too. It certainly is the term that we use in the United States. These are students who come from families where they are the first to go to college, and so their parents have not attained any type of tertiary education. And so it's a different mindset that they bring to college, and they have a lot of benefits, and there's a lot of benefits for engaging first-generation students. We refer to them colloquially as first gens, and I will use that term. But they also face a lot of challenges. It is a very large pool of potential students. In the United States, about 40% of the adult population has no tertiary education, and so those represent the parents of a large number of students that are available to U.S. institutions to recruit. In Colombia, it's about 70% of the adult population does not have tertiary education, and so a very large group. And Colombia is doing actually quite well in many contexts with higher education. So many benefits from bringing students. There's benefits for the students, certainly. There's benefits for the students' community and their family, and there's benefits to the profession in engaging these students and having them successfully complete their degree requirements. For the students, certainly it improves their opportunity for social mobility and increasing their standard of living, their financial stability after having graduated and attained a degree, particularly a degree in engineering or another STEM discipline, will probably be much greater than if they did not attend college. They are often seen as mentors and role models in their families and in their communities. And so their siblings will see them go to college and think, well, I could do this too. And the little girl across the street will see them go to college and think, oh, maybe I should look into that. Cousins. I have even known situations in Texas where parents have seen their kids go off to school and they think, I could do that. And so they go back and attain a degree. And so they're very powerful impact on the communities where these students live. They often bring diversity to the table. There often is an intersectionality between demographics, socioeconomic class, and being first-generation status. And so it could be that you bring more underrepresented students into your classroom when you engage first gens. And they often are very resourceful. They have learned how to get things done without the benefit of the higher education. And so they bring a creativity to projects and to the workforce that I think is better than what we see in some of our other students. But they face some challenges. I come from a family, my parents were college educated, and so the conversation at our dinner table was, where are you going to college and what is your major going to be? It was just taken for granted that that's what would happen. And it's a different conversation for first-generation students. And so they may not even know how to apply to college. They may not have great awareness of what types of courses they need to be taking in high school to be adequately prepared for the major that they wish to pursue in college. They may not have a good idea about what the available majors are and what types of job opportunities are there. Once they come to campus, they may not know how to socially engage with others and to form those connections and friendships that make them feel like they belong on campus. They may be embarrassed about being a first-generation student and not knowing about campus resources. They may be reluctant to ask questions to identify themselves that would identify them as a first-generation students. They can experience some anxiety because they're in a markedly different situation than what they had planned for. And that transition into a new environment can be difficult. And sometimes it's difficult for them to move away from their family situation. They may have had responsibilities in their family, providing care for older or younger members of the family, helping support the family through part-time jobs or other types of things. And that may change as they go and devote more time to college. And so that can be a factor in their transition to university. Again, there can be cultural barriers. Some families really like to keep their family close geographically, and so that can be a complicating factor if the student is planning to go away to school. There may be pressure. Oh, you're going to college and you're going to be so great. And so the pressure to perform at an extremely high level can sometimes be a barrier for these students, particularly if they come in as first-year students and they do badly on their first test or two. It can be, they don't know how to respond to that sometimes. And their family may not know how to provide support. I mean, sometimes if the student does badly on their first calculus exam and they call home, we don't want the response to be, oh, it's okay, just come on home. You can come home and be here. The response, we hope, would be, that's okay. Go find some tutoring and try to do better on your next exam. And so we need to make certain that they feel like they've got some family support and that everything aligns and that they feel like they can move forward. And then finally, just the campus culture, the value systems, the things that are important on campus may be different than what they have seen at home. And certainly there are financial barriers. I mean, regardless of what the tuition profile is at an institution, there are going to be other expenses, access to books and materials, living costs if they have to relocate. If not, there's going to be transportation costs that are involved. Because they're not familiar with how things operate on campus, they may not be as aware of opportunities for financial aid and scholarships. And in some situations, it can be a financial burden because they're not going directly into the workforce and starting to earn a wage immediately after completing high school. This is a delay in starting full-time full-time employment for many students. And the lost wages during the time that they're in school can be a burden for some families. So once we get them to campus, we need to make certain that we provide adequate support for them. helping them engage in the campus community, especially in their first year, so that they feel like they belong on campus and they become more familiar with the social opportunities and the support programs that are available to them is crucial. There needs to be good mentoring available to them. That often comes from academic advisors, but we find that it's also very helpful to have peers that are available to them. And so if there is a student who came from a similar situation who is maybe a year or two ahead of them and can talk about their own experience and help them engage with campus, that can be very powerful. We need to make certain that they're aware of campus opportunities for support and for social engagement and that they're taking advantage of those opportunities. We need to publicize and make certain that everybody on campus knows about support services, and we need to normalize asking for help. It needs to be something that any student, regardless of whether they're coming from a first-gen situation or something where it's a long line of family history with college education, that they can ask questions. It's just, there are no dumb questions, just ask. And to celebrate first-generation status, this is not something to be ashamed of. This is something to be very proud of. It is an achievement. And to celebrate that and help students recognize the important step that they have taken. And so, as you heard during the introduction, I work for APET, which is an accrediting agency in the United States that accredits programs in the broad disciplines of engineering, engineering technology, computing, and applied and natural resources. And so, of course, I think accreditation can help us meet some of these challenges that we face in higher education. So let's explore that. So where we are preparing students for change, accreditation provides those educational foundational components that prepare students to have the tools that they need to continue learning and continue their professional development. It incorporates and requires the incorporation of higher learning experiences, those things that make students work at the higher end and the deeper learning end of Bloom's taxonomy, synthesizing information, creating things with the information that they know, doing critical evaluation of the work that they do. It supports engagement with professionals who are working in the industry, both for the faculty and often for the students as well, so that we know for sure that the curriculum that's being provided is up to current standards and is meeting the needs of employers. And it ensures that the resources and the facilities and the other things that students need to develop their ability to teach themselves after graduation are built into the curriculum. How can accreditation help prepare students to work in a global workforce? You will be preparing students in a foundation that provides those globally accepted foundational attributes that are expected across disciplines regardless of where they're delivered. And so that foundational base that is uniform across the discipline is there with accreditation. It helps employers understand the value of the degree that the students attain when they complete for you, and so that helps them as they go looking for jobs, and I think helps their mobility both within countries, but sometimes even beyond country borders. It provides a critical requirement in many places as a starting point for professional licensure. And it helps develop a sense of teaming and communication and provides opportunities for students to develop skills in teaming and communication before they go out into the workforce. And I will claim and believe that accreditation actually helps recruit and complete students. Certainly, it is an indicator to prospective students and their families that the educational program that you offer is of sound quality and meets accepted standards. And so they know that they are choosing a good program to make an investment in. It assures families and students that the facilities and the support services, the academic advising, the career counseling, the laboratories are appropriate and support student success within the program. And again, it demonstrates that that education and the time and the effort spent on acquiring the education is a worthwhile investment, and that it's worth sending the student to school and losing the income that they might otherwise make so that they will have an opportunity for an even better career after completing the degree. So, in conclusion, how do we provide this foundation to our graduates who are going to be going into this complex work environment so that they can have lifelong success? So, ChatGPT does a pretty good job at summarizing things. I fed the slide stack into ChatGPT, and this is what it came up with as concluding statements. And I really agree with most of it. I have found it really is not good at answering technical questions. I don't know how much you have done with it in your discipline, but not good. And so most of the main points here, I really agree with it. The students are going to be facing global challenges. They need to be able to self-learn. Their education is going to continue long after they complete that degree program. There's going to be increasing workforce demand, and so we need to make certain that we are graduating more students in these disciplines to meet that demand, and accreditation can be helpful. But I did my own summary too, and these are the high points that I hope that you will take away. To address these large-scale global issues and to meet these challenges that we face as individuals in higher education, we do need to make certain that students have a strong educational foundation that is rich in high-impact learning experiences so that they get the skills that they need to be able to continue learning and to continue their education as they go forward as professionals. We need to provide experiences to help develop communication, particularly interpersonal communications, teaming, and intercultural skills so that they are prepared to work with a truly global partnership and in partnerships with people from any place in the world and any type of background. And we need to recruit more students, particularly, I believe, first-generation students and underrepresented students, to make certain that we provide enough engineers, but that we also provide a richness of the diversity of the engineers that we produce, because we are stronger through those diverse opinions. And finally, accreditation provides a handy framework for ensuring that these pieces are part of our curriculum, and I think that it is helpful in that regard. Before I give up the stage, I want to make certain that you're aware of opportunities that are coming up for you to further engage with ABET. We have a booth here at the conference, and so please feel free to stop by. I am limited in what I can say because I only speak English, but I have some colleagues here who are also engaged in ABET, and they can converse with you, and we will do everything we can to answer questions you may have about ABET accreditation. You can also find a tremendous amount of information on the ABET website, and so if you go to abet.org/accreditation, you will find a lot of information about the processes and the timelines and what accreditation looks like outside of the United States. We have a number of workshops and things that are available to you. We have just launched some self-paced workshops in program assessment. There are 4 different workshops. If you complete all 4 of them, you will receive a certificate, and any one of them you will receive a badge for having completed that. And because it is often offered virtually and self-paced, you can sign up anytime and from any location. We will be doing an advanced program assessment workshop virtually in December of this year, and so again, another great opportunity to be able to get some good training from home. And then we will be having an assessment workshop, a series of assessment workshops in Bogota in March, and so that will be coming to Colombia. If you are interested in other offerings, you can go to our ABET assessment, ABET abet.org and find workshops there. And also, I would like to invite you to join us at the ABET Symposium. It will be held the 3rd through the 4th of April in San Diego, California. And so a great opportunity to meet with representatives, people engaged with ABET. A lot of our volunteer experts will be there. A lot of other institutions that have ABET accreditation will be there. And so just a really great opportunity to further engage. And finally, I would like to thank David Almarillo, I probably mispronounced your last name, for providing translation services. He's with Smart Translators and has really been great working with me over the past couple of days, so that those of you who do not have, whose English skills are perhaps maybe a little better than my Spanish skills, but not quite ready for a full program, can get a Spanish translation. So David, thank you very much for your services. And thanks to all of you. I would be happy to answer questions. I think we've got about 15 or 20 minutes if any of you would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Anne. Bueno, para aquellos que desean hacer preguntas, pueden hacerla en español. Anne tiene traducción simultánea, o para aquellos que la quieran hacer en inglés, también. Entonces, si tienen preguntas, les puedo llevar el micrófono.
Hello, good morning. I have a question for you as like a student perspective, because I get that it's really important to have the conversation skills for different teams and something like that. And we in school usually, or in university, no matter the environment, we usually tend to make like our groups which we are comfortable with for working. And it's really hard when teacher says like, let's scramble the eggs, let's take you with some partners you have never been with, and see what comes out of it. And most of the times the difficulty is that we are worried that the work that others do is not the quality that we would like to be like associated with, to say it in some way. And it is important to have like that skill of knowing how to deal when there's issues, when you feel like the work of others do not align with what you know, or if you're being like too harsh and it's actually a good approach, and how to like know when that's the case, you know? And in universities, it's usually like they do not give you like, you usually end up resenting these work teams when you are with people you don't know, because if something goes wrong, you're like, it's because I wasn't with my usual team and I don't know how to resolve these issues when they present. So I would like to know what will be like, how do you think that that could be worked out so students do not have those issues and are more prepared for like that communication skills?
I'm not sure you're going to like my answer. When you go into your career, you probably will not get to choose your team. You will be put into a team with other professionals, many of whom you do not know, some of whom will be very dedicated to the project, some of them may not be very dedicated to the project. And so I think it is important that while you are still in school, that you have an opportunity to try to navigate that situation, so that you're not doing it for the first time when you are in the workforce. And so I think there's a couple of strategies that could help. First, I think having a conversation with your team about what the expectations are. I mean, do you expect people to attend all of the team meetings? Are you going to meet virtually? Are you going to try to find time when everybody's on campus to get together? How are you going to meet? Talk about who really has strengths and how do you take advantage of the strengths that people bring to the table in completing the work of your project. What are your internal deadlines? And so, we need to have our initial ideas set at this particular date. And so leading up to your final due date, how are you going to gauge whether things are on time or not? And what do you do as a group if something is starting to fall behind and you need to come together and try to get a solution? So I think doing some upfront planning very specifically about how you are going to work together as a team can help with some of these things. Not completely, but some. And at least while you're still in an educational environment, if it really gets bad, you can engage your faculty members for some assistance.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Hola, muy buenos días. Hola, Ana. Mi nombre es Ernesto Saugal, Universidad del Bosque. Digamos que mi preocupación está relacionada entre la relación investigación y diseño. Muchos programas de pregrado tratan de enfatizar hacia el lado de investigación. Yo creo que como ingenieros debemos ir hacia el lado de diseño. ¿Cuál es la opinión de David al respecto?
And so ABET accredits programs that at different degree levels. And so you're in an engineering program? Yes. So the Engineering Accreditation Commission accredits programs at the baccalaureate level and at the master's level. And so at the baccalaureate level, we do require a major design experience that's culminating, something that happens late in the program and requires students to bring together information from courses that they have taken prior to that. And that is a vital component for the baccalaureate degrees. More advanced study in the discipline is a requirement at the master's level. And so that can take many different forms. And so at the graduate level, often we are seeing that it's more of a research project. We do see, especially in some instances where undergraduate research is just an expectation within the discipline, that there is both an undergraduate research project and a major capstone experience. And if that fits within your curriculum, that's lovely, but it's not required that you have both. The capstone or the major design experience is. Does that answer your question? Great.
Hola, muchas gracias por tu presentación. Cada vez como que me llama más la atención la certificación de APET, entonces pues te quería dar las gracias. Y también te quería preguntar un punto particular de los first gens que tú mencionas. Me parece que según las estadísticas que nos mostraste, tenemos un amplio mercado para trabajar aquí en Colombia. Y me parece maravilloso como todas las, digamos, las observaciones que nos haces de cómo mantener a esos estudiantes que son de primera generación. Pero mi pregunta es cómo podríamos atraerlos, porque también entendiendo un poquito del contexto en Colombia, a veces estas familias no es que no estén orgullosas, sino que es más el miedo a lanzar a los chicos a que vayan y estudien, y a veces los desmotivan y les dicen que eso no es para ellos, que ellos son como de la casa, de la familia, del campo. Y pues es una barrera muy difícil de romper, entonces yo quisiera saber si tienes conocimiento de cómo atraer a estos potenciales first gen students que mencionas.
I suspect that there will be others who have suggestions, and I would love to hear from others in the group. I can talk about some things that I have seen during my time at Texas A&M that have helped. I think family engagement programs can be very powerful. And so this is having outreach programs for prospective students, particularly as they are starting to come into grade 8, grade 9, where they're really starting to need to think about what they take in high school to become prepared for college, to have programming for those students and for their families. And that gives you an opportunity to explain that, yes, there is a cost that comes, and the separation of the student potentially physically from the family, taking their time away from family obligations to devote to school, keeping them out of the workforce for a few years, but that the investment is worth it. And so I think trying to help them, and it also gives you an opportunity to talk about the support programs that are available. If you've got tutoring services, advising, counseling, medical support, I mean, just the basics that they're familiar with at home, but they may not be familiar with in your campus environment, and just in answering questions, because there will be lots of them. I think once you get them there, we have our new student program at Texas A&M also included family programming. And so there were web pages specifically for family members and what to expect in the first year, how to help your student when they hit a stumbling block on campus, and things that they can do. And so providing help and resources for families, I think, helps raise the comfort level a little bit.
Ana, muchas gracias por su presentación. Respecto a las habilidades blandas, quisiera que nos ampliara un poco el tema intercultural, porque yo noto que a veces, o que muchas veces, ni siquiera la cultura local la conocemos bien. Entonces, aparte de la media o del internet, creo que no es suficiente. ¿Cuáles serían como sus recomendaciones para que esa parte intercultural y también para que las comunicaciones interpersonales, que pienso yo que son las más importantes? Creo que los chicos son muy buenos en la parte de social media y de comunicarse por redes, pero en la parte face to face creo que a veces no hacemos lo suficiente para que ellos soporten una entrevista, una junta, un comité de gerencia. Son muy hábiles en internet, pero en el interpersonal creo que tenemos que hacer más cosas por ellos.
I do think that there is some value in social media engagement, because our students are much more comfortable engaging with each other in a virtual environment than those of us with gray hair are. And so that is, I think, a benefit that they have for working in a global environment. But social media also lets them gravitate to those who are very similar to them. And so they form these affinity groups, and they are not forced to work with others who are different than them. I think that there are ways that we can be sneaky about how we integrate this into our curriculum. And so an assignment where students have to think about, well, if I were doing this design in an urban environment where there's very strong infrastructure, what would it look like? But then how would I have to change this project or change the solution for this project if it were being implemented in a rural area where there was not as much infrastructure? And so getting them thinking about how they might change their approach on something given the context in which it is being developed is one idea. Forcing them into uncomfortable group situations and conversations while you have them in the classroom, where you have an opportunity to provide a grade so where they know that they need to actually put effort into it, can also be a strategy to do it. And so I think that we need to look for ways that we can do it within the context of our discipline. There's often opportunities to take courses on world cultures and things like that as part of the general curriculum in many programs. I'm not sure that that's enough. I think that there's things that we need to do to make certain that it shows that this is something that happens within our discipline specifically. Did that sort of answer your question? Okay.
Good morning, Anne. Thank you for your nice and clear presentation. My intervention is about this first generation and the opportunities that may have in the ABET accreditation process. A university, for example, addressing entrepreneurship in the social environment in which the first generation are. That issue is taken by ABET accreditation. I mean, you consider, for example, a capstone design related to entrepreneurship associated to the first generation in their environment?
There is no requirement in ABET that you serve a particular group of students. And so we accredit programs in so many different contexts. We have programs at very large institutions that have a mission to serve as broad a group of students in the state as possible. But we also accredit programs that are very small and maybe cater to students from a particular faith. We accredit students both inside the United States and outside the United States that just educate students of a particular gender. And so we're not worried about who you bring into your program, but the educational experience that you provide to the students that you bring into the program, that is what we're looking for. Now, if you do special things, we do require advising, career counseling, and many of our things under our criterion 1, which is related to students. Those components have to be there, but they're really just a baseline. And so anything that you can do beyond that, we may, especially if it's particularly remarkable, may cite it as a strength in your program, but it's not something that if it's not there, we're not going to discredit you for it.
Bueno, muchas gracias por la asistencia. Creo que hemos tenido la oportunidad de ver el impacto que al final tiene el concepto de calidad y acreditación en tener currículos que cada vez nos permitan lograr que nuestros egresados sean exitosos en un mundo global. Para aquellos que estén interesados también en conocer un poco más del proceso de acreditación, conocer el valor de la acreditación y también el tema de procedimientos, el día de mañana a las 8 de la mañana en el Salón Barahona 1, Anne va a estar también disponible para todos aquellos que quieran tener preguntas y conocer un poco más. So Anne, thank you very much for your presentation.
A pleasure. Thank you.